Right, let's see if this is working. We have this on. Right, let's see if this is working. We have this on. Let's see if this is working. We should be reloading. Okay. Now, hello everyone. How are you all doing today? Now, hello everyone. How are you all doing today? Now, hello everyone. How are you all doing today? Appear to be very, very quiet. Let me see if I can fix that. Oh. Let me see if that's working now better. Hello everyone. Hello everyone. Oh, that is working better. Oh, that is working better. Right then. How are we all? Hello, Ali Loves History. Now, if you remember the last time we were here, North America is the blaze of conflict. I've already lost because technically the game because I haven't completed all in enough time, but I did want to see if I could finish off North America and have the entire control the entire of America before, you know, we signed off from this. And started on our Rome Total War series, which is going to be... Well, there's going to be a video next week come out, and as I did the recording on live for you all on Friday, where people can decide whether they want it to play the digitally enhanced version, the remastered version that's come out, or they want me to play the traditional. I think so far people lean towards the remastered. If they do, I will procure it, and we will enjoy it. There is no point in you guys moving. There is nothing I can do about you. You are quite scary enough coming down here. This could be interesting. Hello, Sonic. Easter lunch was cooked by my sister, so I've opened up a case of Iron Brew. Emergency case of Iron Brew. How's everyone else? How was your Easter lunch, if you had one? Have you enjoyed it? Hello, John. Oh, they have the long rifle irregulars, and they have the US Marines in there. Okay, I've got to watch out for the US Marines. I know how dangerous they are in a fight. Both digitally and in real life terms, they are frigging dangerous.
Yes. Forwards for crown and country. Easy bread.
Stranger seems to think I'm the besieger. Oh well, let's carry out the assault and see what we can do. I moved a block of battleships around together. I expected them to fight together. That would be normal if you're moving a block of battleships around together. You would expect them to fight together. You would normally expect them to fight together. Yeah, that sounds like UAD, and yeah, they will get piecemealed then. I think these troops are going to attack me. Because apparently I'm attacking them, though. Not sure what a single cannon can do. We'll put that on that flank just to make sure. And you can go here. And I have reinforcements coming into the map, so let's see where they come from. Now, if I'm mistaken, they have one section of cavalry. And again, they formed up... I have no idea how this one is working, but yeah. Let's see. They've got 3 lines of foot infantry and 1 section of cavalry. All again on this flank. By the way, for anyone wondering, this is why you do not let your cavalry run away. On the X-craft being used to lay nuclear mines in 50s, sorry, I'm distracted by the cavalry for a second there. On that particular topic, and I'm going to turn the volume down just a tad in my ear. Right then, on the particular topic of the X-craft being used to lay mines in the 50s, there was plans about that, and they did look into it, but no one actually did it. It seems to be the thing. As a early history, I get it. It's for the cruisers and destroyers, but why are you sending 1 or 2 out of my 5 battleships and 2 battlecruisers against a 2 battlecruiser block against a similar sized force that is intact? Yes, agreed. you know, it's like whenever I have discussions about the Royal Navy in World War II, and people go, well, you know, it's a one-on-one, you know, this ship is better than the British ship, and you go, but the British fleet, even when they're designing treaties, is not designed to fight one-on-one. The British fleet is designed to not go mano a mano, but, or rather shippo e shippo, it's designed to go shippo, shippo, shippo e shippo. I.e., we have 3 ships to your 1. Yes! Now we totally overwhelm you, so we might as well produce a more balanced ship. And a more survivable ship that we can more easily repair. It's why there's such a big risk under the treaty system. So, I think we'll wait till they get to the lower hills, then we'll attack them with cavalry. Especially as they're not doing anything to block themselves off. Oh, that's just making them even more attractive. Oh, now you form square. You tend to form square, do you? You just had an Iron Brew ad. Woohoo! And here was me thinking I was the Iron Brew ad. I had 20 I had 20 standard class battleships, 3 generations of 24 knot, 14.5-inch gun battleships. Move them around as a grand fleet. No seniority, you'll end up with all your battleships in repair, and Austro-Hungarians and Spaniards had their battleships intact and so sent in subs. Ouch! I can tell you mildly miffed, and rightfully so. I think they're planning on trying to... you guys really engaging in a knockdown, drawn-out fight with my Rangers? Because that's just silly. They're holding up that long. You advance, you push them out the way. You do not. It's like, as artillery, yes, I only have a single gun, but this is not what you do to artillery. You did have semi-realistic for 1910, 14.5-inch guns, pretty good. 24 knots. Honestly, that's a pretty capable force. .5-inch belts and 5.5-inch decks. At that point, when your armor is thicker than the caliber of your guns, there is an issue going on, Ali, but I can understand why you ended up the way you did. And by the way, this is why you do not, as infantry, advance into the center of the enemy. This is also, as infantry, why you don't do this? Oh. They're now... Okay. Engage. All the rest of you, cavalry, I love you dearly. Go kill. Hello, Lesin. Having your armor get to 15.5 inches is, that's a lot of armor you're carrying around for weight of a ship, and really you have to always remember a battleship is sort of in the middle of your, well, in naval terms, it is the same sort of triangle. It's the armor, firepower, speed triangle, and a battleship is supposed to be in the middle of it. I tend to try and balance my armor, and I usually have my armor roughly about an inch thinner than the caliber of my guns. Is usually where I'm aiming at, and I try and get the speed as high as I possibly can have it. So if I can have a speed of 28 knots, I'm happy. I honestly don't tend to build much in the way of battle cruisers. And this is despite when I play as British, I should probably have more battle cruisers, because my battleships tend to be fast enough that to make my battle cruisers fast enough to be justifiable in expense terms versus the battleships. They have to be very, very fast. Because my battleships of the Dreadnought generation usually are about 23, 24 knots already. And then my battleships of the subsequent generations just keep getting faster. 1919, I dumped the Grand Fleet because I had a bit of panic from the World War. Just suffered and rebuilt the fleet as 3 blocks of 4 14.5-inch battleships and 2 14.5-inch battle cruisers with a G3 style flotilla as a 16-inch flotilla leader. Ah, interesting. Nice structuring. It would have worked if UAD weren't being quite so weird, yes. Probably. My cavalry have done their job. I sacrificed them to buy time for me to defeat the rest of the American force. Yeah, you're going to be facing a unit which you do not want to face. And they're facing a unit they don't want to face, so I can send one of you guys to back up him. So there's you guys going off.
Citizenry. Reporting. Citizenry. Right away, sir. Infantry. Hey!
You went to the Lionheart School of Cavalry, and like, no! My cavalry I don't like to let die, but I do have, sometimes I have to sacrifice them. Honestly, of the units you can afford to lose as a rule in this game, cavalry, especially some of the cheaper end of cavalry, are units you can afford to quickly replace. Kingsrook, you spent how many hours doing? 8 hours in a single one of Star Wars. No, just 4 hours. 4 hours sounds better than 8 hours. These gentlemen are what are affectionately known as Schnuckert. They have artillery over there, they have infantry here, and they have cavalry coming in behind them. If I was them, I would be running. Spike. My choice is the ships as fast as I can get with longer range guns I can build or reload less than 90 seconds. Yeah. Reload rate can be interesting. That can have an interesting impact on your performance. I have to admit, my battleships very rarely end up with guns larger than 16.5 inch. Honestly, there are theoretical advantages to it, and you can build some really super duper whopper guns in the lovely thing that is known as UAD, but you don't really need them. I find if I have something wandering along with roughly 15, 16.5 inch guns, or as one case, one of my ships, 20 16.5 inch guns, 5 quadruple turrets, That tends to bushwhack pretty much anyone.
Glorious victory!
Sorry, I think I have some of my sister's lunch chat my teeth still. Sorry. Very rude. But, no, my
Your
sister
orders, Your Majesty.
cooked lunch. For anyone who asked the question, yes, it was every bit what you imagine it to be. Every bit. Sounds interesting, Ali. I do enjoy the three types of destroyers.
Settlement under siege.
It's gonna sound strange, but this entire force, the thing I'm worried most about is the 90 US Marines, because I know how good they are in this one. 5.5-inch gunners on a fleet tribal-style fleet destroyer. That could be interesting. Top speed of 37 knots, that's useful. Everything is 5.5 inch. Ah, logistically pure. I like that. 5.5-inch secondaries on all the capital ships, 5.5-inch guns on all the destroyers. I like this. Sounds sensible, King's Rook, to build fleets that can truly take on the enemies. And continuing the siege. Not because I don't want to win, but because, in nicest way, I want to see what else I can get up to. There's got to be something else for me to have fun with down here as well. Ooh.
Yes, Your
I
Majesty.
forgot about this army. I'm at war with the Spanish.
All hands on deck! All hands on deck! Forward! Arms!
Oh, this will be fun. Cruisers are a bit of an oddball. Not really. I would say if I was building, well, my normal cruisers end up with roughly 9.2-inch guns. Rather historically, because my destroyers, I have to admit, do tend to end up with about 5-inch guns, not 5.5-inch. And as I said, my capital ships end up with 16.5-inch, so usually I end up picking about 9-inch, sort of somewhere in between for my cruisers, and just settling in. And I just build. I have to say I'm to an extent lazy. I usually have 2 types of destroyer, but only 1 type of cruiser. And I just churn out that cruiser. And everything will be variations on that cruiser from the beginning, and they will all have roughly 12 guns, 4 triple turrets, and you can guess the rest from basically working it through it. They'll have a decent amount of belt armor, a decent amount of this, but they're basically their cruisers, and the thing is, I will build a lot of them. They look impressive, but they're built, a lot of them are built for the purpose of just, you want to have a cruiser fight me, that's good. For every single squadron of cruisers you produce, I will come at you with about 5 of them. all terrible ground for the artillery to fire over. That, whoever controls this bit of ground, if they haven't put their artillery up here, they have missed the frigating trick, because that is just a brilliant ground to stick some artillery on. You know, anything you stick up here can pretty much command this entire flank artillery. Don't know if they have artillery. Can't remember. That's always useful in Stellaris to have science, King's Rook. In my experience, science was the most important thing to gather. If you had enough of that, everything else was doable. I think I might put my artillery up here. Infantry back to here. Depth to provide you with some protection. I think it's put them in a dead ground. I think that might have put them in even more in the dead ground. Yeah. Nice mixture, Ali. Nice mixture indeed. Oh, they missed it. Oh, they put their artillery over here. I was worried for a second. But look what they've done to their artillery. Look at that. Spanish, I expected better of you. Look at where your artillery is. They can fire at nothing. I can't get the best position, but I think... Limber up. I don't know why you're over here, because I seem to remember putting everyone else over the other direction. But, as you're going to be here, you go on your own. You guys. Stay unlimited and wait for them to come. Let's react to this and see if we can't deal with it. I do counter battery when I can, and when I have the chance to, and when I need to. If they were being sensible, they'd be very worried about what's just about to happen. I'm worried about what's about to happen. I don't want you guys on fire at will mode. Yep. Listen, I've not got my head around that. I'm not sure this game. The game is. It's UAD. I'm not got my head around. UAD is interesting. This is Empire Total War. Yeah. UAD have always tried to produce good music. More interesting thing is what I'm going to do about this artillery over here. What I probably will do is slowly move my own artillery over to here and see if I can't get them very, very close. It's very brave of them, but there's no way Firelock Armed Citizenry are getting that close. And I want them to move to... stay back as far from artillery as possible. I would agree that some of the versions of UAD, some of the updates have been very, very interesting. Some being worse than others. Some versions actually did manage to work it out, so it hasn't, and the latest one has got better. For a given amount of better, to use the French. You know, that's the problem. It's for a given amount of better. Yes, it's gotten better. But it's not got better to the point at which it is supremely better, if that makes sense. It's potentially better. Well, theoretically, you could do a boarding action with a 16-inch gunship. Let's be honest, Tribal class destroyers tried it in World War II with a 4.7-inch armed ship versus a 15-inch gunship. There's a lot of potential for a boarding action in World War II, just never happens. Strangely, my usual ally of the Spanish is being quiet today. He's very tired. Very, very tired. Had a busy night. I think Darren Plowhound could be accused of trying many things in the Rodney. God knows what he'd have got up to in the ships I build. Please note, if there's ever a time to abandon your position, it's when you can actually see your enemy from your own position moving around you into a position where your guns can't fire at them. Oh, we certainly had the Scottish engineers screaming something. I think actually, I'm not sure. I did remember once reading that the guy who was chief engineer on the Rodney at the time was a Welshman, so make with that what you will. But I'm never quite sure about that one, because sometimes when I see these things said without any attributions, I just... I'm not sure whether to trust them or not. It seems rather interesting. Tovey in a full-fledged Lion class. Yes, that would have been fun. So, you have now got 9 guns. In answer to anyone's question about earlier, the time to go running was long before this. Long before this. Obviously, look, if you seriously built... And this is one of the interesting conversations I've had recently, especially about the capital ships in UAD, but also the capital ships which could have been. The changes in the world, if G3 and N3 are built, and if the treaties go through after them, are immense. The treaty differentials that would have to go through to allow a world where the N3 and G3 would exist. Because let's be honest, the Royal Navy, after building those two classes, is not going to start turning them off, and go, okay, we'll get rid of our newest ships. They're not going to. So, in a world where there are 4 G3s and 4 N3s built, the treaty system looks very different. The naval structures going into World War II look obscenely different than what they are in reality. And you have a very different scenario, because if you think about it, if you have 4 G3s and 4 N3s in service, then that's going to have a massive change. Even if there are reductions and treaties do reduct them, then let's be honest, the British are going to get rid of everything before they get rid of those 4 ships. So, Renown, Repulse, Hood, Tiger could all have gone. The G3s could be the only battlecruisers the Iron has remaining. But think about it from the point of view of, okay, so where do you set the international limits on fire on guns? Because if you have to set it at 18 inches, which means Yamato no longer becomes this special thing. So what kind of capital ship do the Japanese build? What ship are they allowed to build as a response to the N3s under the treaties? Do they even manage to build a response, or do they go bankrupt trying to do it? Does that change the nature of the treaties? Because again, I have this feeling and when I'm ever looking at the treaties, they're not really worried about the tech race between the British and the Americans. they're worried about a numerical race. And if you start looking around it, that's what the Americans and the Japanese have heating up. That's what potentially the French and the Italians have heating up. It's one of the interesting things that none of the numerical races are really in Britain's case. But the thing is, if America starts racing against Japan, Britain is going to have to increase its number of shipbuilding as well, because it can't afford to be outnumbered. Which is going to change the scenario again. So it becomes, how do I put this politely, a differential which has to be considered. And so, you know, but there's also the scenario, the very real potential scenario, that the British build the G3s and the N3s. And the US Navy doesn't build anything in response. And therefore the Japanese don't build anything in response. There is that possibility. And we have an uneasy plateau for the remainder of the 1920s. Not with... Look, please, Tillman is asking where battleships will end up, but that's not Cloud Cuckoo Land. If you consider the expense the Navy was costing and the various programs that were going on, you can understand why a congressman was asking this question, and they needed to ask the question of where it's going to go. No, I don't agree with the idea of not funding a Navy. That's never going to be something I'm going to agree with. I'm a naval historian, for starters. But the point is, there is a legitimate legitimacy to someone asking, where is this going to go? There is a legitimacy to someone going, why do we keep building these in small increments and it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger? Where's it going to end up? I'm not sure how they're saying this is even. There's 1,800 troops on this side and 900 troops on that side. But yeah, they're attacking me. Or am I attacking them? Gun turrets? No, 6 gun turrets probably. But you have to remember, Tillman didn't come up with the designs himself. He asked engineers to tell him what the maximum potential designs would be. And so he got these wonderful designs produced by these engineers. They're not Tillman's own personal designs. They're called the Tillman battleships, but they're not his personal designs. He doesn't draw them. So you have to give him that amount of respect and that amount of purpose. And this is why it was considered an even match, isn't it? Oh my. It's a perfect Vauban fort. I think you're possibly right that the likely response is building. Oh, look at those lovely ramps. This place is lovely. This is going to be nuts, my troops attacking, isn't it? Absolutely nuts. These guys up here. Can't get much. Ooh, hang on. Are they they're coming out to attack me, aren't they?
Yes, sir.
It's always nice when your opponent's coming out to attack you. Makes life a little bit easier. But yeah, Tillman gets a lot of flack, and some of it's justifiable, I do admit. But a lot of it is a case of, well, what else was he supposed to be asking? What else was he supposed to be doing? You know, it's not what we might agree with, but we're all sort of pro-Navy on here. We are, and we have to respect. Yeah, you have to sometimes recognise when you are at a disadvantage in understanding your opponent because of your own biases. I don't know history. If the G3s would be allowed through, do you think they'd have finished Anson and Howe? I don't think so. Well, no, let's put it this way. There is part of me which is always tempted to say that if the G3s are allowed through, and if they're building the G3s, then I think Hood's sisters get finished off as aircraft carriers. And I have a reason for saying this. And I've discussed it before, but my long-term suspicion has always been Camel Airs is referred to by the Royal Navy as the strike carrier large carrier specialists before they even build a carrier officially, before they build Ark Royal. It's one of the reasons why they're given Ark Royal to build. And there is no other large ship which fits their time frame, which they're working on, than the Admiral class battlecruiser. So their Admiral class battlecruiser, I am sure, was going to be turned into an aircraft carrier. At least it was being planned as. And I think it's one of the things which is cut off by treaty, which is really not known about, because the hull hadn't been broken up. So I think they're at least looking at it and studying it intently, the idea of converting it to an aircraft carrier. And if they had, I wouldn't be surprised if, instead of Courageous, Glorious and Furious as your 3 core aircraft carriers, your core aircraft carriers are the Admirals. In which case, Hood going is kind of sad, but there's still Admiral class around in World War II because they're the aircraft carriers. Make sure they're all in skirmishing mode, so they back up together. I think... Oh, I wouldn't say most politicians are sheep, but I'd say there's certainly a lot of groupthink that goes on in politics. But it's not so much sheep as in... There's that old saying, it's tall sheep which get... It's tall trees which get shut down first. And you don't... If you're a politician, the last thing you want to be is chopped down. You want to rise to the top of that political pyramid, but you don't want to do it in such a way that allows other people to easily lop your head off. And this does lead to interesting effects. They're positioning themselves to attack from that flank, which is nice to know. They're all going to come me from one side. I've got everything positioned to deal with the stuff coming out there, they think, but if they'd noticed, they'd have realised that this is a pretty freewheeling formation. Hey Jonathan, what's the live stream always in the afternoon? Thought it was the evening. The Twitch one's always been in the afternoon. The Baruchit's one is in the evening. Right, but the carrier conversion is not efficient, so the Ark Royal is much more efficient carrying Lexingtons on a far less tonnage. Yes and no. There's also the fact that honestly the battle cruisers, they might not have been as efficient in tonnage, but they still carried a lot more aircraft. And let's be honest, Hood is the Admirals, especially later out of the second batch of Admirals, are far bigger ships than the Lexingtons, so it would have been a far bigger, more interesting carrier, and it would have replaced Glorious, Courageous, and Furious. And let's be honest, they're conversions anyway. See, Cameron, Doc, I found if you capture Panama, the US Navy tends to build up as rapidly. This seems counter to a real US response, even if it forced Petrie. What do you think? I think that I can understand they would want to build up as quickly, but I don't think they would build up as quickly because, again, it's going to be moving the industry round. You see, you have to remember, how are you going to move that industry from one side to the other? How are you going to move the plants you need from the east coast of the United States to the west coast of the United States to set up the manufacturing facilities on the west coast? Because a lot of the industry goes round by sea, so if you don't have control of the Panama Canal, you can charge for it and put limits on it and cause all sorts of fun to delay it. Yeah, if you are getting your carriers being shot at by 11-inch guns, you are in the wrong place by a long way. Basically, these 3 sets of guns should stop them being able to come here, which means ultimately I've got 6 units of infantry which I can use as a reserve, And I've got 7 units of infantry as my core force for fighting them. 7 units of infantry as roughly 840 troops. They've got a total force of 960, so my core force to hold them is roughly the same strength as their whole force to attack me. And they've also got this problem, because these banks are going to be an issue for them. My Rangers causing the normal trouble they like to cause. Let's agree. I sent a battlecruiser away from the Caribbean, pre-Panama Canal. It didn't go south, then back up. No, it went along the Northwest Passage. Well, that's cool. For you. Not sure about the cool for historically. You know what I mean? In a war game, carriers are what keep me alive. We play it fast and loose with history and tech. So super carriers are 28 supersonic medium bombers and lots of planes and headers. Yeah, sounds sensible. Let's see what they're gonna do. So far, these guys are not really behaving sensibly. It's nice to know they have great affection for me. And that my Rangers are able to hold them up quite so conclusively. As a Canadian, I'm qualified to call the Air Commander delivering full. The Air Commander is a delivering full. Basically, they have given this battle to me. And that's meant in the nicest way, but they have given this battle to me by coming out and attacking me. The way they have. Because, quite historically accurately, I have built siege works. Which have been designed to withstand an enemy counterattack. So I've basically pulled the Caesar on them. Let them come and attack me, wear their forces down, and... yeah. And I don't know why they're concentrating as much force as they are to try and overrun. There is no way any of these forces are overrunning this section. Yes, the Rangers might be running. But seeing as they are my extreme line designed to basically fall apart, and the fact that one of them is actually still holding its position, worries me. Enemy general is dead. That's not necessarily a bad thing for the enemy. So basically, Jonathan Moon, just thinking about that stat, you said you got 28 supersonic medium bombers, 36 light bombers, heavy combat carrier air support, 36 supersonic fighter interceptors, and 8 medium transport planes. That's a fairly decent sized air group, but that's quite a large carrier. Hello, George Newman. No worries. What do you get on a grocery run? If it's anything like me... Oh, by the way, I've just been introduced this amazing thing which has come to my area. It's called Amazon Fresh Delivery. Brilliant. So if you're now what you're noticing is that my infantry are streaming forward is, you know. Anyway, infantry's now streaming forward to take them. It is. Now, why is Amazon Fresh so good? Well, I can tell you why. They deliver Iron Brew! So now if co-op etc. runs out for me, I have Amazon Fresh as another source. I appear to have somehow taken this gate already. I'm not sure how, but I appear to have done. In fact, I appear to have taken the whole fort, somehow.
Don't think there's going to be many of these American troops left after this is finished. Fairly sure I just took this off America, but yes, we'll come kill you. Now you've started bombarding my fort, I'm going to start taking you. Seriously. Grocery run was a £12 bag of dog food, 2 £11 bags, and 2 £12 bags of cat food, and some food for me. Okay. Well, if your local Morrison's at the top of your street, then you know you're just lucky, Spike. So yes, you know you can't complain. Amazon fulfilled by Morrison's? No, we do have Amazon fulfilled by Morrison's in our area, but we also now have Amazon Fresh, which comes from Amazon's own stores now, apparently. No, we can still call... Look, just because something is thicker doesn't mean the other one wasn't thick. Sorry, you know, Ali Love History is written. No longer can we call Nerod's thick when this guy's aircraft carriers exist. Well, no. Just because, you know, as said, because one's thicker doesn't mean the first one isn't thick. Let's be honest, to be fair to the nail rods, they were designed to be thick. I just wish they'd been a little bit faster, because I think then the world would have been in a very different place in 1940, 1942. Because let's be honest, if Nerods had been legitimately fast battleships, i.e. able to do 28 knots, there is a legitimate argument to say there would have been a difference in the makeup of the forces which Tovey would have been commanding to take on Bismarck. Because if you suddenly have the Nelrods added to the fast ship roster, do you take out Prince of Wales for starters? Because she's barely able. While she is a fast battleship, she's not up to service. Do you take Hood out? Do you have both Nelrods out, playing fast battleship, along with the King George V? Do you have Hood as well, maybe out there? But, you know, you could end up with a scenario where you had a Nelrod, one of the Nels, well, let's say Rodney. You could have had a scenario where Rodney, Hood, and Prince of Wales are the three ships coming across Bismarck and Prince Eugen. At which point, one has to sit there and think, well, whilst it's still, Bismarck might still golden battleship Hood, but does she golden battleship Hood and still go on to sink anything else or be any more a threat after a battle? In which Rodney's there. But as Ali's put it, you probably do stick, you know, Hood in refit somewhere nice and safely. Oh, I think I earned plenty of money in that turn. That's good. Now, I'm going to take
To there. Naval recruitment. Build another third rate.
Settlement under siege.
And
The swine rot in the sty. Siege works underway.
can I recruit some more troops for you guys? Yeah, I can.
They hide behind women's skirts.
Let them do that. Let them hide in there. I like that army being in there. While that army's in there, they feel good. As long as they feel good and feel safe, everything is good for me. I need to rebuild this army quite heavily. I will do. But at the moment, this army is going walkies. So, I need to leave you guys behind. And probably you and you. And I need you to send you to go and deal with him.
Orders.
Oh, Virgil Collingwood has died. That's annoying. I don't have a decent admiral out here at the moment. Hang on. I have Jervis. Sir John Jervis, okay. And Cuthbert Collingwood, I'm fine. I lost the general. I lost the general. That's annoying to me more, but not impossible to deal with.
Yes, my lord.
Yeah, Spanish trade is being finally deluged.
Set sail. Jump to it and look lively. Ship's orders.
And that should do. Got the Carolinas. I now need to take this, and then I've wiped out America. Well, I also had to take Williamsburg, Virginia. But Williamsburg, Virginia is doing a great job of tying down pretty much most of the American army.
Place of learning and culture.
Well, I was about to say, well, that's Rodney doing 31 knots. Well, let's be honest, that's probably more Rodney doing, yeah, roughly that. Oh, they're coming out to attack me. That's good. Because let's be honest, if she can do 28 knots, then who knows what Durham Hampton could get up to. Agreed, Alias Street, that the RN engines boilers kept Hood going at any speed and Rodney passed a trial speed on a basically shredded turbine. Well, very good, they were. John Moore, full nuclear propulsion, had to idea reactor and such like on their own subdivision, subject parts of the ship. Nuclear reactor, putting that... I don't think anyone would want to put that into a battleship. I think... Look, there is a... When you're building a nuclear reactor, or anything like that, you must remember it's a controlled explosion. It's a controlled nuclear reaction. Designing that into a ship that's supposed to do what a battleship's supposed to do is not really a sensible scenario. Designing into an aircraft carrier, yeah. Submarine, yes, you can make the case for it because it is a very efficient use of space in that regard in a submarine's terminal in the context and nuance of a submarine. But in terms of a battleship, a nuclear-powered battleship, you're going to want to encase that in so much concrete and so much armor to protect it that you are going to be in a nightmare for design perspectives.
Yeah, the GM makes the rules. A nuclear submarine with hours of hot propulsion. That's slightly more intriguing. Oh. I wonder where I'm gonna dig in my artillery. There, sorted. That's spotted. So now, let's start producing this formation. Now again, I'm going for multiple lines of defense and security, so I'm basically going, right then, what look like the likely avenues of attack to me? And let's seal them off. I think
that should do. And that's the cavalry. And let's stick them back here. I think that should hold. Especially as I now have reinforcements arriving at some point. The moment I lose units, I get reinforcements. It is rather like that, King's Rook. It is over America, I have the high ground, yes. At this point, I really should be standing up here shouting, I'm not sure who the general is, "It's over! I have the high ground!" At which point he'll try and vault over me, and my artillery will reach out and go, bye-bye. You cease to exist from this point onwards. You have to come attack me. I can do whatever I like. What's even more annoying for them is sitting, I think, not that far away, probably over, ready to enter the field from somewhere on sort of this line, is a load of reinforcements for me. They won't show up until I lose troops, because you're only allowed to field 20 per battle. I think they are considering a whole frontal attack on this entire fortification. The nuclear submarine is the Azipod, mounted to a battleship in case of trouble. Disconnect. That could be an interesting idea. That is actually an interesting idea. The nuclear submarine is the power and command system for an otherwise for a crew escape module for a ship. You have extra, more comfortable crew quarters and facilities in the wider surface vessel, but if the vessel's in trouble, instead of evacuating to lifeboats, they evacuate to the submarine, which is the nuclear power system which evacuates them from the ship. It would be astonishingly expensive to build, but it is an interesting idea. Oh, look at this. This is brave. The artillery's trying to get close enough to get in the range. A nice way for the artillery to get into range to fire on any of these. They have got to get so much. Yeah, it's just not fair. If anyone wants a good example of what not to do, the US Marines are incredibly brave. They're incredibly good troops. They are good, great cracking troops. But you never do this with them. Because they will do it. They will advance. And I have huge respect for them. But, and they will try and advance all the way up that hill.
hard to make anyone obey the law if they don't want to. It is. It's very hard to make anyone obey the law if they don't want to.
Close the shooting range!
Again, this is not a sensible thing to do. They will do it because they are earthly brave and well trained, but this is not a sensible scenario to do. You've got artillery coming down. And yes, the cavalry just forced the Rangers to withdraw, but the cavalry also just sacrificed themselves on that defensive position. That's made the cavalry less useful. You're wondering, yes, I am. Just currently drawing my infantry in because I don't see the point in having them go out and fight because they don't need to. Yeah, the US cavalry, they learnt far too much from the British. Far, far too much. And, you know, look at this lot. They are advancing, advancing, advancing. Very brave. And I have got reinforcements coming in. I wonder if they realise I'd have reinforcements coming in. Thank you. Sorry. I'm being very rude because I was just enjoying my battle so much I was ignoring what else was going on. I think by the end of this, the Americans might be wondering what they did. And they did a lot wrong. Enemy general killed. Always nice to know. Basically, I have put up a multi-layered defensive concentric style castle of a temporary nature on top of a hill And I don't really need to do much to run it, because it runs itself. And I'm going to quietly sneak this infantry unit in from behind to actually take the fort. Centre of my line is anchored by some grenadiers. Not sure why they left their guns, but they did. Not sure why they keep turning their back on the enemy, but they do. There are some American units over there. But no one's stopping this one. No. Infantry advancing straight, uncontested, unengaged, no one really bothering about them. And shall we go and deal with this line, these foot troops? Yes, some firelock arms infantry. Yes, we shall. And while we're dealing with it, let's do this. Yeah, it's a very, very mad setup on this hill, but it's how do I put it? It's working very nicely. Thank you very much. Now this is the point I always find most annoying. My own cavalry will run onto my own defences and get themselves killed. Not quite sure how my own cavalry do that, but they do. I'd have thought your own cavalry would have known where your defences were and not got yourselves killed. For example, these stakes here. How? How are they getting killed by them? I think I have now taken the fort. Judging by the fact they are now firing at the fort, I have taken the fort. And the whole point of this was to defend the fort. That's the purpose. My general's coming in. And one. Let's see. There is actual historical evidence of... In fact, there is quite a lot of forts and castles constructed in abs next to hills, etc. There are the ideas of build a well or those sort of things to get water up higher, but sometimes if the water is hard enough to get to and you still need to be in that position, you build a fortification. Now, there are other ways to get round it. Now, the British used to get round it, and later American forts castles got around it by actually using what is basically a water piping method. And digging a trench, etc., a shallow point the whole way down, and having water storage in the ports. And often, if you go to certain castles, you will find there are well areas, but there is also areas which were suitable for storing large amounts of liquid and food. It's not unusual, especially in some of the Crusader castles, to find huge rooms, which are literally just water storage points. Of course, the Romans tended to build quite heavy-duty water supplies as well. Always fun.
Ready for order. Sir. Anything more?
Right. So, do you think this guy will attack? Oh. Are they claiming we didn't win control this fort? Because that I find absurd. Yeah, I think they're trying to claim we didn't win control.
Troops, forward!
Well, that's easy enough to rectify. Let's take the 66.
Forwards for crown and country! Forward! Up!
So all the cavalry units that can be in there are in there. All the infantry units are that I can be at 120 are at 120.
Settlement besieged. Raise the flag.
Let's assault. Right. Didn't the Russians build a fort ported above a mountain and Japanese then shelled them without being able to hit back? There are some examples of that sort of scenario going on, but it's more complicated than that because the Japanese at first had to get through the outer Russian forts, which hadn't been completed in time. And that was part of the Japanese reason for the timing of their attack, was the reality that the forts weren't available to work. If the forts had been available to work, then they probably would have not attacked when they did. Which is just common sense, really. You know, you attack when your enemy is least able to deal with you attacking them. Don't want you being taken out by an easy shot from a artillery piece. Let's see what we can do. They're trying to hold every point. Which is brave. And really their only option. I do like the detail of the fire steps. But not really sensible. And not what you probably would do in this situation. Well. Most of the castles in North Wales are built on top of hills. Yeah, it is. But also, you have to remember, most of the locations look more difficult to get to than they were in the time. Most of them were built on the coast with already access to the sea, which is where the materials were brought in by. Guzman, do you think the Alamo could have been won? If you could have spent a couple of months actually fortifying the Alamo properly, you could possibly have won it, or at least held out long enough for the field army to get there. Winning the Alamo is not necessarily defeating the field army at the Alamo with the troops you have there. What winning the Alamo means is holding up the enemy field army long enough at the Alamo that the field army can come and engage them at the Alamo. I agreed with George Newman that, 3,500 troops, bigger guns against 185 men in a crumbling old mission that was only partially refortified. Yeah, you needed to do a lot of work. You could have done it, but you needed to do a lot of work. See the problem with trying to fortify everywhere? They don't have strong enough positions anywhere to really hold me off. They're trying to, but their positions are being swarmed. And these guys are trying to attack the go to there. Yes, I am taking all the buildings around him. Take care, Jonathan Moon. Enjoy the Easter dinner. Let's be honest. I thought, considering, and I can say this because I have relatives in that fair state of America, Texas is another phrase for stubborn. It really is. I love them dearly, but Texas is definitely another phrase for stubborn.
he just got killed by my artillery. Why? Stop firing and limber up. That is the one thing I find strange about this game. Sometimes you turn around and you go, why is my general just being killed by artillery? It doesn't make sense. They did come by that suddenness naturally, yes. And I got reinforcements arriving, but you know, hey, it saves money. I've lost the general. Didn't really need him after the next couple of battles. The Regiment Horse. Well, they should be losing because, let's be honest, there should be some people firing out of these windows at them. Some people firing out of those windows at them. What these always remind me is of Halifax. If you go to the fort above Halifax, this really looks like it. You know, and you can see the real quality of construction that went into Halifax. You can find lots of little sort of chambers like this down at the base of the fort. Really cool place to go. Really, really cool place to go. Ah, another the 108 are here again. I think we won this battle, but let's see. I wouldn't say I'm bad with my generals, it's just I consider them mildly expendable. The one advantage of Easter, but it did put me in the song from memory. I've got a Yorkie one, and not need much chocolate, but I'll probably slowly eat that over the next couple of weeks, months. And it reminded me of the advert that Yorkie used to run, which was "Not Yorkie Bar, not for girls." And I always seem to remember it worked brilliantly because it seemed to make all my cousins buy them because they went, yeah, so we're getting this because we're girls and we enjoy Yorkie bars. So we're buying it, you know, because it is for girls, it's for us. And it made quite a lot of boys buy it as well, because, you know, the boys were going, And I sort of went, that was one of the most cleverest marketing schemes you've ever had come out. Because in one statement, they managed to make pretty much everyone who would buy chocolate buy it. And at the same time, generated so much faux outrage and all sorts of things that it, you know, it really did give them all sorts of free advertising. Fort George is good to have a look around in Scotland. Speaking as a private school boy as well, Middle East Scholarship one, but private school boy. By tradition, the scholarship boys tended to go into, let's be honest, the Royal Navy or the engineering. Yeah, there is always the fun thing of whenever you have the school assembly and you're gathered there and you're looking up at the pictures of the illustrious students the schools produced. There would always be a few dozen generals wandering around from pretty much every school. Where is it?
are the last Americans. Please go kill them. Rather appropriate. Hessian line infantry going to do this job. Always good to use some German troops to do the killing for you. No. Because you always have to remember the British have a curious habit. There is only one, you know, you can get away with a lot being being from the right school. You can manage to get away with a lot. But not actually doing your job proper and not actually succeeding in your job will get you got rid of. There is that great scene in Sharp. I think it's Sharp's Eagle. And it's in the program. And the colonel loses the king's colours. And the colonel says to Wellington, I have friends at court. And Wellington turns round and goes, those who lose the king's colours lose the king's friendship. You have no friends at court. And that's the pure truth. Whereas it was a quirk. It was the entire quirk of the British system. That it seemed to be that in the system the UK built, we still had the nobles, we still had all that system, but it was always perceived that if you failed in your task, you quickly lost support. If you succeeded, you could face other issues, and that still wasn't any guarantee of survival, but failure was a guarantee of you losing the king's support. And you then look at some of the other nations, and you sit there and go, I can understand why you had the issues you did. Because it was more important for you to be of the right family than to be successful. But it was the thing, the families themselves would weed people out who weren't successful. The amount of, if you look in history, the amount of sons and offspring of families who were just sort of airbrushed from the records because they aren't good at doing their job. Wellington was also a relative. Yes, he'd gone to the right enough schools that he was acceptable, but he was a scholarship boy. It's quite fun to watch these guys chasing around. They do exercise perfect climbing drill. You have to admit that. You know, look at this. These are perfect drills. Hands in the right positions, everything. Off and charging after the enemy. Yeah.
The siege is lifted. Yes, my lord.
Although the level of Irish depends on your perspective in Wellesley's case, because his family more than likely were heavily how do I say this, immigrations to Ireland.
Lord. Men, forward. At the ready.
Anything left?
March!
And
Yes, sir.
anything which isn't up to full strength, we are taking with us. Anything which is up to full strength, we are leaving
More
behind.
orders?
You gentlemen will march to Charleston and reinforce Charleston.
Ready for orders.
I'm actually going to need to rebuild Philadelphia now. That's the annoying thing, because I was the one who destroyed Philadelphia in the earlier session.
Gathering supplies.
There's a gentleman. Those the family thought were too dim to see your offer sent to church on Navy to succeed or die. Honestly, in the British case, they are they're not sent to the Navy because the Navy, remember, has exams. No, you'd send them to the militia. You'd send them to colonial postings, garrison troops in faraway lands that they could succeed or die at. You wouldn't send them to the army to fight in Europe, and you would certainly not send them to the Navy, because if just imagine the embarrassment if your son failed to pass his lieutenant's exam. Imagine the horror. You know, and it's not unheard of for sons to fail to pass those exams.
Your orders, Your Majesty. Forward for crown and country.
It's disturbingly not unheard of for sons and to fail those exams.
Your orders.
And so, you know, you make sure they are sorted with you send them off to the appropriate people. The East India Company was also another great we'll take everyone we can get our hands on who's actually halfway decent. At the moment, Russia hasn't done much. I've sort of been concentrating on Europe and ignoring. I haven't actually popped over and checked on Europe at all in this game. So far, I've been ignoring everywhere outside of North America. So who knows what the rest have done. But the Russians have got to Amsterdam.
Prepare for action. Aye, aye, sir. Down the decks. All hands make ready. All away.
And I am pretty much keeping my fleet safe and ready. I'm going to have to do some recruiting of troops over here. Let's see. I fancy the Chasseurs Britanniques. Because they're quite useful. And it's good to have some light infantry that I can trust. And let's see what's the army like here. I want a very infantry-based army, but I want an army which I can actually rely on to do some fighting. Has it got its artillery allocation? It's got 2 guns. It probably needs another 2. So that's 6. I don't need General's Bodyguard. I don't need anything else. I can build those, and that will probably reinforce this army quite nicely. Thank you very much. Because I have a plan for that. Oh, Sweden's arisen! Sweden has returned! This is useful for me. This will keep the Russians busy. But at the moment, I have got to consider what I'm... Spain's... What? I've got to consider the fact that the Spain have control of France. And I'm going to have to consider that at some point. But in the Far East, in India, I have control of Ceylon. I have a pirating fleet there. And I have control of these ports. I have no trade fleets in this ocean. But I control pretty much all the trade in this ocean. And I control a large chunk of the trade in this ocean. So I'm doing fairly well, and yeah, I'm just beating up North America. Yes, Spain has taken Paris. Buying... Yeah, buying his brother a colonelcy was a very big thing. But also, if you consider for Arthur's elder brother, it was also a way of securing his own position, because he needed more regiments out in India. And buying a colonelcy for his brother secured the allocation of those regiments. So, and meant, it's going to sound strange, that he had some troops who he could guarantee to rely on would do what he asked them to do. Theoretically, of course, Wellesley had to follow the military chain of command and the various generals, but the reality was, if his brother sent direct orders requesting him to do something, his brother is the governor of India, and he has to respond. So there is some good. There is some self-interest in it as well. I would say King's Rook on the RCN's Naval Experience Program. I am going to reserve my judgment till we have next conversation in Bilgemunt about it. Wellesley had already had experience in combat. Ooh. That's the important thing. He wasn't actually even that bad a politician. He was not really suitable for Prime Minister because he was too used to being in command. This is the trouble. Generals very rarely make good political leaders because they're too used to being able to issue orders. Which is the basic problem you have in any system which seeks to promote and prioritize military experience over everything else. Because, in the nicest way, military experience is not necessarily the most suitable for running a democracy, because you don't tend to, in a military circumstance, have to deal with people saying no. In fact, the number of people who are going to say no to most generals is very, very low. Because think about it. Who's going to say no to a general in the field? Well, they get their superior officer. That's fine, they understand that. That's the chain of command. But the moment you get onto you're a prime minister, who's your superior officer? In the UK, there is the problem that there is a monarch, so theoretically, those same senior officers will immediately start treating the monarch as their senior officer. In which case, the monarch is not really trained. The monarch is. I always explain the monarch as being sort of listener in chief in the UK Constitution. They're there to advise and act as a sounding board, something which prime ministers do rightfully need. But they are not there. They're really not there to be... How do I put this? To be the person in charge. That's not their purpose anymore. So you don't really... A general doesn't really have the... how do I put this? No military officer really has the training naturally for a democratic institution. You need them represented in Parliament. Trust me, in a Parliament system, you do need to have those people with that level, that experience in there. But you don't really want them to end up, unless they are almost an Eisenhower-style figure, who are, by their nature, built to compromise and reach solutions, and that's the whole point of politics. The odds are you're trying to reach a solution which is going to satisfy no one 100%, but going to keep everyone happy enough. They're going to keep bought into the system, which is going to keep everything going, which will be better for everyone in the long run. That's the point. Any political scenario is a negotiation. It is a... Not even just a negotiation. It's about reaching an accommodation, a sort of something which people can live with. And... yeah. Why have I got imminent bankruptcy? Yeah. East Indies trade. Who is raiding my East Indies trade, and where can I find you and hurt you? Yep, they're all there.
Aye, sir. Aye, aye, Captain. Men, forward!
Right, I'm going to need 3 more troops, but I'll put the Navy out to sea a bit more. Ooh.
Battle stations! Battle stations!
The Russians are really attacking. Because if you notice, the Russians are now in control of Flanders.
Get ready! Fire! Swarm! They hide behind women's skirts.
I think I'm going to need to go back and get some reinforcements. All 3 of you.
Forwards! Forward and country! All hands make ready! battle.
Yeah, that's okay. Right. Continue the siege.
Settlement besieged.
But you see, what was I saying? I was talking about the whole problem of having generals become politicians. A lifetime spent giving orders, is the basic thesis, is not necessarily the best scenario for reaching compromise. Curiously enough, they tend to have more knowledge of the internal political scheme, though. Whereas naval officers who have to spend a lifetime reaching a compromise, because if you consider you have to always compromise between fighting, floating, and basically fighting or floating. That's, you know, the sort of the the things you've got to prioritize, or moving to an extent. And captains always have to reach a compromise because they only have so many personnel, etc. They've got to allocate resources. They can't ask for any more. There's no more to give. They've got what they've got on their ship. But usually they spend their entire time sort of negotiating and balancing these things out, which then makes them also not good as sort of political leaders in terms of prime ministers, because they're not used to thinking of what else can we get. They're always working with what they have, not thinking, hang on, can we get better resources? Can we get other people who might be better for this scenario? So, neither side in the military equation really tends to produce the most skills for being a politician. And you do need politicians, because you do need that. You need that form of government, because to an extent anarchy doesn't work. We tried it for several thousand years as humans, and it basically resulted in our lives being being nasty, short, and painful. And it's one of those things. Yes, it's very easy to be very annoyed with central government when it doesn't work as we would like it to, as efficiently or as effectively as we can do. But you have to remember the judgment when we compare. And this is something that comes up, the amount of people go, well, you know, I run a business. Well, governments aren't run like a business. A business is supposed to produce a profit. That's how you judge the efficiency of a business. How do you judge the efficiency of a government? Because, if you think about it, okay, a government could entirely orientate itself around giving great healthcare, but then education and everything else would suffer. The government is supposed to allocate those resources to those things which, frankly, as much as we might like the idea of a free market economy governing, don't tend to work out that well when a free market economy is governing, because of the realities that these things don't, or that of humanity. You know, government exists so the collective will occasionally ameliorate some of the worst excesses of the individual will. Again, I would say that these battles we've been talking about, do you need a massive general staff system to command an army the size of Wellington? Wellington has a staff. One of the things that often was people presume Wellington doesn't have a staff because he doesn't have a large staff. No, Wellington always has a staff. He has, it's usually kind of an interesting formation, and usually it's, let's put it this way, it's less talked about than other officers at the time in terms of staff, because he often picks engineering and artillery officers. There is, again, if you consider one of the things they do get right in Bernard Cornwell series and the Sharp television series, it's often his chiefs of staff and senior officers and the people he describes as their coat buttoning up over many duties are engineering officers. But the trouble is they don't get written home about, because engineering officers don't tend to come from the really highfalutin families, because they don't buy their commissions. They have to earn them by being very, very smart, and which is why engineering officers are, again, often scholarship kids. There's a lot of discussion of MacArthur's cabinet going on here. I can shave to balance Bradley versus Patton and versus Monty versus Allenbrook. One of the interesting things is actually Monty and Patton tended to get on quite well. When you look at the actual historical account of the two actually got on quite well. Monty did not get on very well with Bradley at all. And Bradley, of course, advised on the movie Patton, which is made after Patton's died. And Bradley basically tries to transfer the Monty-Bradley disagreements into an entire Monty the USA disagreement, when actually Monty and Patton both thought Bradley was too slow. And Allenbrook wasn't as much of a trouble for Schaeff. No, with Monty. His main trouble with Allenbrook was dealing with Allenbrook's constant problems with Cunningham, because Cunningham kept outfoxing him every 5 minutes. Because Allenbrook kept trying to decide he would know what naval policy should be, and Cunningham, as First Sea Lord, would just zump it, basically. Pretty much Spike, but actually, let's be honest, you've put the function of government is to provide stability for its popular circuit function within the cultural norm. Pretty much, but that's pretty much what I said in a very academic phraseology. Because it's to ameliorate, using a collective strength to ameliorate our individual weaknesses. So let's put it like the individual personality is what will tend to break things out of the cultural norm. The individual need for greed or security, etc. And let's be honest, greed is just a constant is motivated often by a constant feeling of insecurity. If you ever met a really greedy person, they're usually greedy because they're insecure, and they're usually greedy in a way they're insecure because they're insecurity. Me, I know, due to, and I have to always watch this for myself, I come from a familial background, and because of my own experience with my father not being necessarily the best at managing money, that I can be very, very cautious about spending money. Overly cautious. And I must always seek to have a reserve. But the thing is, you have to also be sensible in the money you're spending. And it's never reached the level of greed with me, or anything like that, of me trying to be rapacious and take money off people, etc., which I haven't earned, or anything like that. But I have had to have the conversation with myself of, why am I saving this money versus buying this tool I need? And I could see, if I was in a scenario where I had more money, it could turn into greed. So I have to sort of keep an eye on it. And that's a personal thing. And we all have those personal weaknesses. And the thing is, the collectivization of government, to an extent, is about dealing with that weakness. It's one of the things that, curiously enough, both sides of the political spectrum, when you really look down to it, will agree on it. That, it's about, liberal. If we go to sort of the oldest political traditions, which are conservatism versus liberalism. Conservatism is, of course, an anti-ideology ideology. The whole idea was that you would govern, as it originally sprang from, was that you would govern without using ideology. I do realise modern conservatism is very different, and modern conservatism has sprung all these weird ideologies like small government and all this sort of stuff, when traditional conservatism was, you do not have an ideology, you do not govern with ideology, you base everything on the facts. But, yeah, liberalism also agreed, and both of them agreed that you have to be realistic where humanity's involved. And all humans have failing. It might not be greed. Some people have an excess of compassion. Which sounds weird. You're probably thinking, hang on, how can people have an excess of compassion? They can have an excess of compassion.
More orders. Ready. On.
The same as anything you can have. We might believe that we can't have an excess of these things, but you can. Yeah, Cunningham was a very good naval officer. He was also a very good politician. And not really. It seldom suggests that we were healthier, were the healthiest in the Mesolithic period until now. Yeah. But I do sometimes wonder if that's survivorship bias with that, with those. It's going to sound strange, but when we look at some of the skeletons from the past, I do wonder if the skeletons we find sometimes are the one, especially in some periods, are the ones of the people who were in the best condition. So it's a sort of survivorship bias.
Men, forward!
Mm-hmm.
Make ready! March! Awaiting further orders.
And I think we'll go drop the troops off over here.
Boys, either way. Any orders? Weigh anchor! Form!
Greed is different to being tight. It can be motivated by the same things. I know, because I would say that's more a case of my grandfather's teachings, which taught me to worry about that one. But, you know, it can be motivated by the same things. If left unchecked, being tight can turn to greed, and quite quickly, and then to avarice. Oh, yes, what he did was have an incredibly large S2 division with exploring officers. He loved intelligence to depend on it. Yes, intelligence, engineering, logistics were all things which Wellesley did push forward quite heavily. I can, yeah, I understand you can say that's why we're considering a civil service, but yeah, it's fun. Next episode of Bill Trumps will be recorded probably Friday. And the reason it hasn't been recorded before now is because, honestly, I was away and tired. And I love my colleagues, but I have worked out that if I'm not there, that sounds egotistical, but they're both sufficiently busy that and it's usually more often not me, but sometimes it is them, one of us has to be pushing to remind the others to do it. Now, what's the betting that them being American, okay, I'm supposed to be laying siege, right, to this place? And I've got the settlement behind me, so I've already taken the settlement. What are they doing? Trying to counterattack me? We're going to position you guys down here. Like that. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. As an interesting, if the building holiday hadn't been forced by the treaty system, I don't think we'd have ended up having the NHS as the National Insurance Act wouldn't have been extended. I think we would have done, because the reason the National Insurance Act is extended is because of the welfare state established for the First World War, and you have to remember this already. Let's sort of say, one of the interesting things about the NHS and the National Health System is that there have already been moves going in that direction in the UK for a while, because one of the things that starts to come through early on, and you have this again if you look at a traditional Conservative as it existed at the time in the UK, not as we're talking post-Thatcher ideological Conservatives, we're talking Conservatives in the 1910s, 1900s. There is very much a strong motive of healthcare is something which needs to be more universal. And there are two reasons for this. One, they need to find a system to grow the number of doctors and nurses and medical personnel as part of national security. And this is something which is looked at with the idea of a potential blitz. You have to remember, you're going into the 1920s with the idea that bombing and mass bombings could become a reality. So you have to start thinking about building more of a security, more of an in-depth health system. And so, with some of the movements which have been going on prior to World War I, and some movements that happened in the 1920s and the 30s, you already have developments heading towards the National Health Service. And when they're doing the National Health Service work, they are looking at three different options. They look at the centrally controlled model, which is what we went with. They're looking at a national health insurance model. And they're looking, which is something which is sort of halfway in between. And it's an interesting idea when they went for it. So let's see, the Scottish would say careful, not tight. Prudent. Prudent is the words that come from the Scottish side of the family. Prudent spending. It's prudent. I know the street, but it makes sense to me at least that the Mesolithic period would have a pelvis. On the whole, our diet wasn't yet wheat-based. They were not moving around as much. The technology had reached a sufficient point that it reduced the workload without increasing specialization. Yeah, there are some definitely some decent ideas about that. Oh, good lord. Scenario 1, don't come charging in with your cavalry. I think that was their only cavalry. Gentlemen, go form up over there. This is going to be interesting. Yeah, because the Germans did it first. Lord George took offence to the fact the Germans took the moral high ground in the 1909 budget. They did try to have fun. And it's like, see, Bevan based the NHS on his local community healthcare system in his community in Wales. Yes, and there were lots of other systems like it nationwide. It was one of the interesting things that the healthcare and the NHS system, and the reason why it's formed up in trust organisations, is because there's lots of different systems around the country, which it basically takes over and takes into it, rather than it being, how do I put this politely, a sudden system built in place. Take care, Kingsborough.
Oh. We have Minimen. We have more Minimen. We have lots of Minutemen. This might not be good. Now, that's probably not the best for them. One of the things you also have to remember for governments, and this is one of the reasons why they tend to take out long-term debt, is because they can take out debt usually because they can sustain enough over periods of time that actually mean that inflation will wear it down. And that's one of the reasons why governments like inflation of a certain level, because it actually reduces their debt. And has an appreciable effect on it. One of the only organizations where inflation is both long-term and short-term considered a useful thing. Now, please note, that is not what I would call a defensive position. That's seriously what they established to try and stop me attacking them. And I'm all the way over there. So, they were angled to fight an enemy coming from this direction. And I was over in that direction. I would like it to be known that I consider these artillerymen nothing less than supremely brave. Also mildly stupid. Possibly insane. Now, you gentlemen, go away from... Go to take out that. Inflation is a representation of future stagnation. It can be all sorts of fun things. So, yeah, the NHS, please, one of the things that I find most annoying about it is sometimes the false history that the Bevan report suddenly produces something that has no basis before and actually does already have some sort of level of existence. They already have some things going on. And not a lot, don't get me wrong. I don't want to say the NHS wasn't created by the Bevan report. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the history is more nuanced and complicated and layered than sometimes it's presumed to be and shown to be. Because again, one of the really cool things, okay, recently is that there's been a lot of focus on the midwives scenario, especially with the Call to Midwives television program and the books. But what people seem to forget is, hang on, there was already the system set in place. There already were midwives. There already were a certain network in Popular. And yes, the NHS comes in and does bring in some astounding benefits. But mostly they are building on existing systems. And it's a while before they start to develop whole new systems. And again, this is one of the reasons why we have the issues we do with the modern NHS. Because it's always been more of a hodgepodge construction than an actual system. And I love as the NHS, I support it wholeheartedly, but you know, you have to admit that there are still large chunks of the system
which are Victoriana. Do I fancy attacking? I think I will decline the attack. I have a reason for declining the attack. At the moment, I don't want to fight that battle. I might want to fight that battle in a bit, but I'd prefer to get some more reinforcements come across from the UK, or have the Russians attack this a bit more. The issue report that Bevan Base's report on started and finished in 1941-48. Yes, it was. But it was a report into the existing systems and a report into how they could structure it. I'm not having you fight that battle. I have no desire to lose my battle, my ship of the line. Thank you, thank you. They're in revolt in Hispaniola. I don't think
You're humble, sir.
that you should have any control. Oh, that's, yeah. So yes, the white paper in 1942 also suggested comprehensive school. There was all sorts of things already done, and you have to remember, and as Allied History pointed out, the 1942 white paper was written by the same guy who wrote the report on 1999 report on the National Insurance Act. Yes, I do seem to remember that fact as well. And this is one of the things you have going on. You know, you have a lot of reports. The British are. The point is, it doesn't come from nowhere. That's basically what I'm trying to say. And it's unsurprising it doesn't come from nowhere. You know. This is the UK. We take a long time to do frigating anything. You know. People are then surprised and go, well, I thought this report produced it all and the world changed. No. Wasn't like that. You're not far off it, but it doesn't change overnight. We might wish it did, but it doesn't. There's no dead ground over there for me to hide troops in nicely. Whereas I can hide my troops over here and keep them away from artillery fire until I want to engage. It's always nice when you can speed up the pace of your artillery fire. Does make life a little bit easier. But anyway, my reason for suggesting it wouldn't have happened is that the National Insurance Act hadn't been expanded to cover the miners as well as the shipbuilders as it originally covered in 1928, is that it made much more of the doctors comfortable with the idea of not working privately, something World War II allowed as well. It's a real problem trying to get them to agree to the National Insurance Act of 1911, and then the NHS. Oh, it did take a while, but there were other factors going on, especially post-World War One. You know, most of those same doctors had spent a lot of time working with those people in the trenches and in the field hospitals. It had changed their perception of working with people. It had also changed their perception of dealing with people. It's going to sound strange. One of the things about World War I you have to remember is it does affect the whole national perception of medicine and medical care. You know, this is something which cannot be overstated. It does have an impact. I am taking my time with this artillery. Let's now ignore that because... I agree. The strikes in the 1920s, yes. There are factors which are certainly more complicated than just the idea of they wanted money. They wanted, in many ways, they wanted support. They wanted fairer treatment for themselves. And understandably. And they didn't want to go back to the system that had existed before because it hadn't worked for them. It hadn't worked for anyone, really. And it leads to the starting of the various fudges which do lead to the health service, as we understand it today. But I don't think the battleships being built, there aren't that many battleships. In a nice way. If there had been a massive naval race, you could well have a reason for saying it. But even then, I don't think there would have been a massive naval race. Because you have to remember, the 1911 Act and all these other things have been done during the height of a naval race. So I think the capital ships could have been built. And also, if you remember, if you think about it correctly... well, no, not correctly. But if you think about it logically... If you've got those ships still being built, then you're going to want to keep the things in place to support the shipbuilders. If you're keeping the stuff in place to support the shipbuilders, then the miners are going to still have a ready-made allies in turn, and that's one of the things. It's the wider trade union movement as well, which does have an impact. You know, it's the wider sort of union sort of movement of, oh yeah, well, if you don't do what we want to do, then our friends can go on strike as well. And that's what causes the trouble for a lot of them. I agreed on the interwar period being a lot more interesting than the wars either side of it. That's why my PhD thesis was on it. They did try pulling artillery with traction engines. Guardsman 14. There's all sorts of things tried in World War One and in World War Two. And of course, it's not like National Insurance Act 1999 either. It was based on the Germans had done in the 1880s. Yes, to an extent. There's some nasty fighting going on in there. But it's also, to an extent, based on, as you point out, on Thomas Cromwell's laws, and also, straight enough, on some of the Peel's Acts as well. Peter Cameron, the way I look at the 20th century modernisation of what we now call the welfare state could be said to have had no lifetime of one person. If you count it from the induction nationwide older age pension, 1909, by you know who. Mm-hmm. So, Spike, the British designed a fully tracked transporter for a £60 Howitzer. Yeah, I think they did, actually. There were even some interesting scenarios put into various other places, which could have produced some very strange-looking vehicles at certain points. I probably don't need to. I do need to. I have. I'm repairing that one. Yes. That'd be sensible. I don't want the Jesuit College. I don't need you. I want a seaport. Actually, I've got seaport. Yeah, that'll do. All these things to be upgraded to earn more money. Yes, that's all good. I need more troops to come down. I need to recruit some more infantry to send to help out. Basically, he needs some reinforcements if he's going to succeed there. Because from memory, Paris is an absolute nightmare to try and take. Now, we want to leave... They're line infantry, and that explains what's going on. They might all look the same, but they're not the same. Now you are going to march up to there, and then you will come out and support him. This is going to be a very interesting action, taking place in 1807, so the year, a couple of years after Battle of Trafalgar actually took place. See what I mean about needing reinforcements? Let's command this and see what we can do. Let's see what we can do. So, the land around Paris. I'm supposed to finish at half past. I'm not finishing at half past, am I? Land around Paris. You're not helping out the Spanish this time. Okay. Oh, okay. That's fun. Oh, now your leg comes up to be battered. You worry me. You make me give me a panic attack by not moving, and then you move. Oh, thank you. Oh, dogs. Love them dearly. Right, and where should we position ourselves? That doesn't look like a decent enough hill. That's a bit of a rise. Over here looks nice and flat, but they're going to be in the center of this, and they're going to be choking in around me. And they're going to have reinforcements coming out of over this direction, aren't they? Let's see. let's see if we can add some more fun to this. So, yeah, we'll want another one of these here. Who wants Paris? The food is rotten. Let's see. No. See, the thing is, if I build that, that gives me a nice long coverage. Also blocks that off. Can we group together? Hey! Hello. Right, I want you guys into here, and I want to turn this area, and I want to attack these now, into a nightmare. I'm sure that's enough. That should make cavalry wandering through there pretty scared. Sensibly so, and consistently scared. Right then. All of you. Let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can do. Can my general survive this battle without killing himself? That is very unlikely. When did artillery start putting gun shields on to reduce small arsenal? Was it World War II? World War I thing. It's a World War I thing. For it's usually for the lighter artillery. There had been some in the Boer War, but it became a lot more common as time goes on, basically. And in certain instances, they start to appear in movies about colonial times because, after all, you know, That's how artillery looks.
I'm trying to think, when did they first actually start doing it? World War is the first time I know of units deploying with stuff actually being bought in that fashion, but there is no scenario that you couldn't fit your own local fashion to it. They're an infantry-based force, largely, aren't they? So having cavalry deterrent systems doesn't really help as much as having something else. When they started having recoil buffers? That's sort of earlier. I'm just rolling. Trouble is, there's a lot of development which takes place around the time of the Boer War, but doesn't get implemented till the Boer War, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of technology being developed in that sort of period. That the local sanctuaries out of Brute. Ali, that's terrible. That's terrible. Boer artillery, the Royal Artillery did get very fed up with the Boer artillery keep shooting them, and Boer snipers keep shooting them. This is not designed to let cavalry go through in a very happy way. I seem to be tying down quite a lot of troops over here with minimal force, so I might well move. The enemy general's being killed. That's fun. There is a lot of Spanish troops coming and fighting me here. I think it's a fairly well stocked position. I'm marching over there. I might want to take a position here. So, the Brunswicker Dragoons. Question is, can I get you out and round my own defences without my own defences killing you, so I can go take out that artillery? We'll see. We will see. No, don't go that way. Don't go that way. There are literally stakes there. Literally, do not. No, no. There are literally stakes. Go to there. Go to. I'm gonna have to thread my own cavalry through my own defences, aren't I? Oh, for goodness sake. Yes, you're out of the stakey zone. Go kill the howitzer foot artillery. Go kill the artillery. No, don't run into the infantry unit. Do not run into the infantry unit. Avoid the infantry unit. Just go kill the artillery. Go. Yep. Light infantry doing what British light infantry tend to do very well. Making someone else's life a nightmare. They're either making their own general's life a nightmare, or they're making someone else's life a nightmare. They're always making someone's life a nightmare. I always liked the line from Wellington. A gunnery officer asked him if he could shoot Napoleon, who was riding in open light before the fog war came down. And he was like, generals have better things to do than take pot shots at each other. There's also the scenario, and here is the point. If you hit and kill Napoleon, great. But if you miss Napoleon, you damage your own morale while raising the enemy's morale. And let's be honest, in artillery in that age, you're more likely to miss than hit. So there is no advantage to doing that. You are incredibly brave. You do realise what's behind you. Possibly the only decent cavalry, heavy cavalry unit in the entirety of the British Army in this game. They're running. See, yes, they're running, but where are you getting to? You are coming across some more light infantry. It's not, these woods are not good places for you to go. I have enough light infantry. These woods are not good for you. It would have been potentially interesting. See, the thing is, it probably doesn't change the day at all. Because the probability is they don't hit Napoleon. So it's not going to change anything. I would say some of the politeness we sometimes get in Wellington's speech, especially about these things. Let's put it this way. There is always part of me which, especially considering how Wellington is reported to speak spoken by in some of the private letters, there's always one part of me that wonders quite strongly whether it isn't, how do I put this, someone has polished his speech for the records. You know, oh, we need to make this a stellar line, so you know when it's read in the papers in England, you know that they all realise how great a spiffing a chap Wellington is, and how much of a actual spiffing Brit he sounds. So you always have to worry about those things because there is always a level of adaptation going on. Always a level of adaptation going on.
Yes. Settlement under siege.
They're going, wow, we outnumber him massively. And I'm going, yes, you do.
Raise the flag. Settlement besieged. Siege works underway.
I have a feeling this army might win this battle. Right, speaking right as the Duke in Black, I am as a Duke, not an Earl. Yeah, it does make a difference. You have to remember, most Dukes in history get that. Well, Duke does come from Dux, which is Roman for commander, and you forget that at your peril.
Underway.
Wow, the Barbary state has a large army sitting out here at the moment.
All hands on deck. All hands on deck. Prepare the troops for battle.
That should make it for an interesting battle.
Target under siege. The swine rot in the sty.
Let's see what we can do. We want to have as many troops in the principal attacking army as we physically can. This means any units not up to full strength, we really don't want to. Unless they are very, very specialist units.
Troops, forward. Siege works underway. Forwards for crown and country.
Tempted to take and swap those two as well.
They hide behind women's skirts.
Then I should have enough for this. Take parry. And of course, by the time we get to the Duke being the Duke, the Prince of Wales was kind of his way to middle-aged corpulence, rather than being stick-thin Hugh Laurie. Yes, but Hugh Laurie gets the personality of the character so right, and oh, it's nearly 6 o'clock. Oh, I'm going to be in trouble with fluffs. Okay, right then, we will do this. Then we will take North Africa from the Americans, and then we will call it day, and I will go walk the fluffy gents before I get a mutiny on my hands. And let's see, what should we do? We've got 4 of these. If there was a suitable position that we could take... See, if I could be up on these hills, I'd be quite happy to blast the whole way through.
But I can't be up on those hills. Can I tuck my infantry? I can tuck my infantry down here. Well, I can't tuck my infantry down here. They're too low. It's too far away. Can I tuck my infantry in a concentration anywhere? Too far back. Tad further forward should allow me to focus on that corner. Oh, not much further forward, but a little bit further forward. Fancy leaving my artillery out exposed without some protection. Ideally, I want them constantly wondering, where the frickin' are his troops? The only troops they should be able to see are my artillery and my general. So not a position you wanted to reinforce from. A mutiny from a full-size poodle and a corgi is going to hurt. They will hurt. Let's be honest. The poodle will go straight for the high angle positions, and the corgi will go straight for the low. Now they're reinforcing this corner above all else, and they had troops come pouring out of it. Corgi against Black Knight at speed. Corgi doesn't understand any... Although, to be fair, even when the Corgi's being nice, and I can show you here, look, nice way, he caught my finger. And that was, he was just jumping around going, yeah, you jumpy, and his finger just caught it. Didn't bite, just caught it. And, yes. Most of their troops, Firelock armed citizenry. Not the greatest. But they have got the Irish Brigade down here. But the Irish Brigade are currently taking a lot of fire from the 87 Regiment of Foot. They're probably also Irish, let's be honest. As of the British Army in the Napoleonic Wars, a large part of it was Irish. Yes, this is where the howitzer with lime shells is a devastating tool. Which is why I took it out in the last engagement, if you remember. Now, if I'd been them, honestly, by this point, I might well have decided that the better course of valor was probably to withdraw inside. Let me just deal that one. Right. Sorry. One of my friends is on holiday in Egypt and currently keeps getting himself lost at sea. Do I have any troops not moving in the general direction? You gentlemen. Yep. No, he's not. He's not. He, I did have to, do some interesting phone calls earlier about it. Come this way. I want all of you to come here. I don't think we ever tried to gain the armory, but
End battle, because now I have control of Paris. And I have
Lifting siege. For battle.
a poodle protesting, because it is time for his wonders. So, I think I am going to not manage to get control of North America this time. Or actually, let's see. I'm going to do this quickly because I'm doing this way solely because I have a poodle protesting and a dog mutiny going on. And it's helpfully done this, and I meant to press it for the auto. I don't know how they lost that battle. That's frigging annoying. How do you, just because I had to withdraw from command, it already lost me the battle. But no, I'm gonna have to accept that because I have to go. Right, thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and that's a sad thing to end it on. It's an annoying thing to end it on. But I've got to go because I've got to go walk the fluffies because I've got to be ready for tonight's brew ships. So take care everyone. Hope you enjoyed the chat, and thank you for watching. And as I said, we're going to be starting Rome Total War next week. Toodles. Thank you, Guardsman. Thank you, I Loves History. Thank you, Spike. Thank you, Malaga. Thank you, John. I think you're watching at one point. I seem to remember John watching and chatting away. And thank you, CD Cameron. Thank you, everyone who's a subscriber. Whatever you called on this Twitch. I keep forgetting. Yeah, they are subscribers. And thank you, everyone, for your support. Thank you, King's Rook, and everyone. It's always fun doing Twitch because it's kind of laid-back sessions. Thank you. Toodles. Let's save this, just in case we ever want to come back and finish it off. And